Hello and welcome to Happy Horror Time. My name is Tim Murdoch.
And my name is Matt Emmerd. And today's special guest is the mastermind behind the House LLC movies. He wrote and directed not one, but 3 films in this found footage horror series, which Tim and I first stumbled upon a few years ago when we watched the original on Shudder. And let me just say, I'll never forget the moment because I remember how much it scared the shit out of us. And that is saying something because we watch horror movies all the time. As much as the Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity have become staples in found footage horror, we truly believe that the original House LLC deserves to be right up there with them. So we are so excited to welcome to the podcast, Stephen Cognetti.
Hey.
Hi, how's it going?
For you to put those Hell House among those legendary found footage movies. So appreciate that. That's a big compliment. Thank you.
Well, of course. I mean, we were, obviously I know you always think of like Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity, but I feel like in the years to come, like House LLC will be mentioned right there with them. It truly deserves to be.
This movie stayed with me because like the other ones, yes, I saw them. They scared me. But this one, like when you're home alone at night, I feel this movie.
That's great.
So Stephen, we love taking things back to like the beginning and finding out how people got their start. So I'm just wondering, where did you grow up and how did you first get involved in filmmaking?
Oh, I grew up in Pennsylvania, and I've always wanted, ever since I was a little kid, wanted to make movies. And then going to college for filmmaking, Temple University in Philadelphia. It got really apparent, like once you start studying film and figuring out how you make a career in film, then you start figuring out, oh, this is a very, very difficult field to get into. You can't just like get a degree and then just get an entry level job and work your way up. And I think all filmmakers have that struggle early on in their career where they say like, how am I going to actually make a film? Like no one's going to give me a script. No one's going to give me a budget. And so when I was out of college, I struggled with that for a while, figuring out how I was going to make a feature film, because it takes a lot to get a feature film off the ground. So I started off making a few shorts, comedies. I never really was into the horror filmmaking. I love horror movies, but I never thought about making horror films.
Oh, I was just about to ask you, were horror films on your radar growing up?
I love horror films. Like The Exorcist is my favorite. I watched that as a kid. It terrified me. I think it's the best horror film ever made. And I always loved horror books. So I read Stephen King as a kid as well. And so I always loved the genre. In my head as a filmmaker, I never felt like, oh, I should make horror movies. It was always like drama or comedy or something. But I realized it's just like, especially, and I tell this to young filmmakers all the time too, it's if you're going to make an indie film with if you don't have a big budget, horror is just such a good genre to get into, because horror fans don't care if you don't have A-list actors in it. Horror fans just want a good horror film. They want to get scared. They want to have, you just get good actors. It doesn't have to be, Nick Cage.
Yeah, we don't need Julia Roberts.
I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah, I want Meryl Streep.
It wouldn't hurt, but I realized and then I just figured out if I'm going to raise money to make my first feature film, I think that genres is going to be so much easier to do it in. It's easier to tell investors like, hey, I'm going to make a horror film, than go up and be like, hey, do you want to invest in my rom-com? And then once I tried writing, and I've never tried writing horror before. So then Hell House was just like my first attempt to write it. And I knew what scared me. I always loved horror, and I just love a good scare. And I just put pen to paper what scares me and put it to Hell House.
Well, that's the thing. So we were able to watch the director's commentary, which on the DVD, and
which is you.
Yes. And we learned a ton of cool stuff about how the film first came to be. But we know
that so long ago. I'm trying to remember what I said at the director's commentary.
Well, I'm gonna ask you because
I might have had a couple of glasses of wine when I recorded that.
I think you said you did shots, which was weird.
No. It's funny because I was thinking that I was like, wow, he has to like talk during this entire movie. And I was wondering, it's like whether anyway, it's tough to do. I could talk forever, Stephen.
But, I had been putting it off, and I hated doing it, and that's why it wasn't ever done again. We made a DVD on 2, and we didn't make one on 3. but I don't know if they made me redo it on 2, but I didn't want to do it because it was like, I remember 1 just being like, and this is going on and talking forever.
Well, I thought you had a lot of great stuff to say, but what I wanted to ask you about is, and so you can take the listeners through like how everything went down, starting from your fascination with abandoned places to just how you found the haunted house attraction in Pennsylvania. Can you kind of take us through that? Even though we know this story, we know the listeners would love to hear.
I love, that's like, whenever I see an abandoned space of any kind, a home, a building, anything, it's, to me, it's the coolest thing. And it's just like walking through an old place that like in my mind just twirls like there's a story in this place, but like maybe like nobody knows, but like it happened, something happened here. And like, you know, you can make up your own fiction about what happened in this abandoned space. And you go to cool towns. There's so many, some towns are older than others and they have that history, that building that just, there's a story about it. And right now it's just like a relic of a time gone. So that's Hell House really came from my fascination with 2 things: abandoned spaces and my love of Dateline mysteries.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you set out to make it a documentary style like Dateline?
Yeah. No, actually, that came later. The first draft of Hell House was a narrative feature, not found footage.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
It was, yeah. And I wrote it out and I didn't like it at all. And so it worked out when I decided like this angle at Hell House doesn't work. A, because I didn't like it. And B, also I didn't have the budget to film traditional narrative. And so, you know, when you decide to go found footage, you cut like you cut your budget in half.
Note
so
to
that worked
self.
out. What's that?
He said,
note to self.
Yeah. Filmmakers out there, if you want to cut your budget.
Because you cut down your production time. So the traditional narratives take so long to film because every scene you're covering from 5, 6, 7 different angles. And so you can only cover like 3 to 5 pages tops a day, where found footage at one angle, you can blow through 15 pages a day. So if you're only filming a movie, which we filmed Hell House for, I want to say 12 days, 10 days at the haunted house, 2 days in New York for doing the interviews. That's great. I just filmed a narrative feature in September, October of last year. That's 95 pages shot traditionally. That took us, we had 22 production days. So we literally cut it in half. And when you cut a production time in half, you cut your budget in half. So that worked out. But I always loved the angle of it that way better, of it being found footage documentary. I think at the time, I remember when I wrote this, I think my mindset was that like, we never see found footage movies that I love, but we never know why we're watching the footage, this footage is being presented to us and how we're seeing it. And that's one thing I wanted to make clear to the audience, that this is a completed documentary and that's how you're seeing it. It's not just like, we didn't just find some canisters of film and now you're seeing it. Someone took the time to find this footage, edit it together, put it together and present it as a finished documentary. And so that was my angle at it. And then I think that told the story better if you approach it as like a mystery, like the audience is trying to figure out with you. I just thought that was so much more fun angle for the story than just shooting the traditional narrative way. And I love Dateline NBCs. You know, like the husband murders the wife is usually 90% of them, and they do the interviews, and but like, so I just took it like, we'll just do it like a Dateline. We have our interviews. We're interviewing people that were involved in some way, but instead of a murder, something paranormal or unexplained happened, and that's what we're trying to figure out. And it's just like swapping out the murders and putting in ghosts, and that was really what it came to.
So you found, it's called the Waldorf Estate of Fear, correct? Yeah,
and I talked to a lot of different haunted houses before. I first, if you go to my Twitter feed, my pinned tweet is the first house I found, an abandoned house I found in Rockland County, New York, in the actual Rockland County. And that was like, and that kind of really propelled the story. I'm like, oh, this is where Hell House comes out to this house, this abandoned house. They take it over. And I never actually used the house. I actually inquired to the owner. I said, what's going on with this house? This house is creepy. And they told me about it. And the more I thought about it, is if I'm going to actually film in a real abandoned place, that's just, that's going to be a shit show production wise, because how are you going to get electricity there? It's probably not safe for anybody.
Yeah.
And so I just then I start tailoring my searches to places that look abandoned, but really are functioning. And and then I went to start going to Halloween haunted houses in the Northeast area because I didn't want to have to travel too far out of New York City, just because that adds more costs. And I found a bunch of places. Some places were more receptive than others. And then, Waldorf, I called them, and the woman who owns it, her name is Angie Moyer. She's like the coolest woman you'd ever meet. She's like, she embodies everything you love about horror and Halloween. She's like, that's her. And she was like excited. She's like, yeah, come on out. I'll meet you. I'll give you a tour. I'll let you see everything. And I sent her the script, and she read it. And then so when I came out and met her, she gave me like a little bit tour, and like, I think you could do this scene in here, this scene in here. And I was like, yeah, you're right. It's like, and my whole reason for being out there to see if certain scenes could fit into her space and just to check it out myself. And she had like a dummy clown mannequin. It was like, it wasn't going to be our clown, but she had one. And so I could just like recreate in my head, like certain shots and see how it would look like walking down the stairs towards her mannequin clown, and see what that would look like on her steps. And it would actually be perfect teaming up with her. And I was like, can we shoot here? She's like, of course. And it was like the best collaboration. Meeting her was like the best thing that happened for Hell House.
That's so cool, especially to meet someone that excited about it too. And by the way, randomly, Lehighton, Pennsylvania, I have to tell this because it's such a random city. I have an ex-boyfriend who's from there, so I've actually been to Lehighton, Pennsylvania. I literally thought no one else in the world had been there, but I've actually been to Lehighton. Pennsylvania.
Was he one of our extras? Did you see him in the back?
No, he has moved. He now lives in LA, and this was like a decade ago. But for the holidays, we went back there, and I remember just thinking, like, where are we? Like, because he was like rural Pennsylvania. But I promised when I was watching, and I heard, wait, did I just hear that right? Because I had never heard that name before, but now I'm like, how did we not go to this haunted house? Obviously it was the holidays, so he didn't. Right. But, what I was wondering is, when you did first start filming in this haunted house, what was was it already still set up for the haunted house, or had she cleared it out? And did she give you freedom to do whatever you wanted?
That's the thing. It helped that we were not shooting in her time frame. So she starts getting geared up for Halloween, I think in August, and we came in and filmed in May. And which helped though, because May, the foliage started to grow back a little bit. And so, but not fully. So it didn't look like summer. It kind of looked like late fall, because the trees were only kind of grown back and they had different colors on them. So with a little bit of post color, we were able to make it look like it was fall. So if we had shot in the summer, there's really no way to fake the lush green look of summer. So May was a great time to film, but we were at it for way then. But she pretty much has, a lot of her haunted house are like real live actors instead of like props. So
did you have to bring in your own props, or did you?
We ordered some stuff, but she mostly had everything, and that was another thing about teaming up with Angie. Everything we really needed, she had. And that was her biggest thing about when she came on board with the film and said she wanted to be a part of it, was that she wanted to make sure that the actual tour itself looked good. And I'm happy for that, because it was like a back thought in my head. It was like, what is the actual decorations? In my head, all I'm thinking about is like the plot, the story, what are the actors doing on the camera? And she's doing what a real a production designer should do, is like, I want to make sure this tour looks good because you're shooting in my tour, and I want it to look like a shit tour. And she kind of made sure that the lights were going, and there were people properly staged in certain places, both actors and props and dummies. So she did a great job designing the tour. Her and I came up with the route of like where they should go through the house for everything we needed to happen, like certain cues people needed to hit, like Joey running by the camera, the clown running by the camera. And Ryan, Jennifer, Sarah, and Mac meeting in like the back closet, where we would see Paul right before we go down to the basement, and like how would they get down to the basement and then come out, and then when everyone's running out of the basement, where would they run out of the hotel? And like that had to be like pre-planned, and like we mapped that out and changed her route a little bit, and had to like put walls up in certain areas and make doors in different areas to make the route make more sense. So it's not her direct route, but we changed things up a little bit. So she was a great collaborator.
Is the basement on the route?
No, never was. Never was. But
yeah,
we needed
I did wonder because I was like, can a haunted house actually take you into a basement where?
No, and not that basement. That basement is, nobody wants to be in that basement. It is true horror.
I'm scared.
Yeah, no, but when we first found it, I came down and saw this basement, and if anybody actually sees it on the director's cut, this DVD, this is a bonus feature for me. First, when I was there, that tour I took with Angie, walking through this place for the first time. I was there with an associate producer, and he was filming it. We came into that basement was just like cluttered with junk. What people use like old basements for. They just fill it up. And so I said to Andrew, I said, this might work. Do you have like a couple of guys that might be able to like clear it out so we could put like people down here? And she did, of course, because Angie's just very resourceful. She gets everything done. She's like, don't worry, I'll have everything cleared. And then we made the back wall is actually fake, where the pentagram is. And she built that so that we could
worship Satan.
Yeah, exactly. So we worship Satan.
So between takes, you did the Satan worshiping, and then you filmed. Yes, okay, got
Both
it.
Both on film and off film, a lot of Satan worship.
Perfect. And when did the sacrifices happen?
Nightly.
That's off film. Like we couldn't film that.
Yeah. Oh, got it. Okay, go on. No,
she was great.
No, I mean, it sounds amazing. And speaking of props, we would be remiss if we didn't mention the terrifying fucking clown that I know everyone talks about and it still haunts us to today. But very important question. First off, did you know that you struck horror gold with the look of that clown? And very importantly, have you received any licensing deals to turn that into like a Halloween costume or a prop? Because I'm telling you, it would sell. I'm serious.
Yeah. I think Joe has gotten some inquiries about making it into like a mass-produced mask, but I didn't. I knew the clown was going to be a good angle at it, and the clown was actually the one thing that was always there from the first draft of the script when it wasn't even a found footage film to the very last draft when we were getting ready to shoot. The clown in those scares with the clown walking down the stairs and all that stuff, that was always there. That never changed. And most of the scares never really changed anyways, but the clown was always the staple of the film because it's like such a very Halloween haunted house kind of thing. And if I was going to do anything of things moving, I knew that if it was going to be a clown, the clown couldn't be overdone, like colorful, like zany hair and like a
talking
nose. Yeah, well, just looking like ridiculous. It would just have to like look very plain and minimalist. And I think that was what and that's the thing. I think clowns can be scary, but a lot of times in horror, up until that point, I thought clowns were not scary anymore because it just takes the right kind of clown to make it scary. And I just think like the dulled colors. The fact that it didn't have like a crazy wig on or something like that. And I always wanted, so I had a sketch artist make some initial things of the clown. And she did some great job with it. I sent it to a mask maker. I said, can you make me a mask of this? And it was, and he said, sure. Right when we got to shoot the film, I asked him, I said, hey, we're about to film. I still haven't received this mask. And he goes, my basement flooded, no mask. And I was like, that was like the ultimate. I'm like, that sounds like a shady story. Like, I'm like, just give me the refund, dude. Like, you're giving me like a dog ate my homework. And
I hope you got your refund.
I hope that he told you that through a text and he said, basement flooded, no mask.
He emailed me that. I was like, dude, I just thought it was there. I just thought he'd already mailed it. And when we got to the location, it was going to be there with Angie. And she's like, it never came. And I'm like, we're shooting tomorrow. Like, what do you mean? And so we had to improvise. And so what Angie did is she found the most blank mask she had. So because all of her clown masks, and you see in the other clown masks that are next to the clown in the basement, those are too much. They're over, like, and I wouldn't want anything like that. It had to be a very pale white face. And then we would make some subtle changes to it. So what she did, she found something that was close to that. We took it to our makeup artist and she totally changed it, made sure like the face was all white. We darkened the eyes a little bit, put just a little bit around the lips and just minimalized it as much as possible. And that got us closest to what I had intended to do, which I think worked out though, because the fact that it was an older mask, I think gave it more of a rugged look.
Yeah, it's like a happy accident.
Yeah, it was more of like a worn down look, like it's been there for a long time, which helps with the story. I think if the guy had made his mask and mailed it, I'm thinking like that probably would have been too like shiny new, and then wouldn't have been so good.
I never knew that. I love these things that like you can do as much research. I didn't know that that mask wasn't the one you had specifically set out to have made.
Right. We had that was a last minute. We had to isn't there a story on that, like on the Halloween set?
I was just gonna say,
it's William Shatner.
Are you sure you didn't take a William Shatner mask? Wouldn't it be great if you're like, so I have this great story. I got this William Shatner mask.
Yeah,
and I just clownify.
I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, I think I've heard that before. No,
why did they do that? Was there like a similar reason, like that their actual mask like didn't come in times?
No, and I can answer this because if you see, listeners can't see, but everyone who's listened to this podcast knows that I'm obsessed with the Halloween series, especially the original. I'm wearing a shirt, big surprise. What happened was they were looking to get masks. They went to just like a store. They got a bunch of them, and like all of them were too over the top. And like the William Shatner one was the most, just kind of like you were saying, the most subtle. And they were like, let me try to do some changes. And when they just like, whited out the face, cut open the eyes, it was just like devoid of emotion, blah, blah, blah. It was great. It terrifies everyone. But it's still, to me, one of the most terrifying masks, which is why I love the clown one, because like you were saying, less is more. And with that clown,
creepy.
That was the two things I would always tell people when we're on set every day is less is more, subtlety is everything. And that's the kind of horror I love. I'm going to bring up the picture, the original sketch for the original, and I'll hold up to
Can you email that to us? Would you mind if we posted that when we post the original sketch?
No.
Oh, okay, cool. Because that way, because obviously nobody can see as we're talking.
Oh yeah,
about.
there'll be a bunch. That's right. This is a audio podcast.
Oh, wow. Yes, please send that to us because I mean it's similar, but I could see how if you received it from like a newly made mask maker, mask maker.
Yeah,
you would. You know what? They should do a parody of Mask Maker.
No, they shouldn't.
Anyway. I can see it's very similar to what appeared, but anyway.
Yeah, no, but that was like the first of like, like, especially in your first feature film, so many things can go wrong and do go wrong. And that was the first like, like a panic, like heart attack moment on set was when, our main mask is not here and we're shooting tomorrow. So, but it worked out.
Yeah, exactly. So, just going into, and this is going to be a big, long-winded thing on me. I apologize.
Oh, here we go.
Well, but so the scenes that I find most terrifying in House LLC are the ones that are in Paul's room. When he turns the camera on himself, and you can see behind him and through the door, because all those scenes, even when nothing is happening, you're just kind of sitting, waiting, constantly on edge, just watching and waiting something to move. And so my long-winded question is, did you always have the camera angles and what you would see in mind when you were writing? Because as a writer, a screenwriter can write a scene that they think is going to be scary, but then it becomes kind of the director has to execute in a way to make it terrifying. You happen to be both in this capacity. So I'm just wondering if you were always thinking with the execution in mind when you would write each scene.
Yeah, especially on the scares. Everything's very specific where the camera's going to be. So that's in my head. Where is Paul going to be holding the camera, and where is whatever we're seeing going to be in the frame, and how that is. So I was very specific about that when we were shooting, especially in Paul's room. Where's that camera going to be over his shoulder? And what we had to work out, and our director of photography, Brian Harnick, was good at doing is he told us, first of all, that she would look better. The girl that ends up being over his shoulder,
the demon. Yeah. Oh God.
Well, and when I showed him pictures of Paul's room where we're going to shoot that scene, he made the great suggestion, and he's like, it should be a dark colored paint. And so I went to Angie. I'm like, hey, Angie, can you guys paint the room? And because it was white, and it would just look better if it was a darker paint, and there'd be more contrast from the subject. And so that's one thing that you get a good someone who knows, good director of photography can figure out for you that I didn't even think of. But in terms of the angle, everything is very specific in the script about where the camera is and where the subject is, and just getting good lighting in there too. And so Brian was really good about when simulating Paul turning on his light, and then how that light would how would we reveal the little girl in the background, making that shot work. So
that scene still today when he's just putting and you think about classically,
I think we all do that,
like putting like a blanket over your head. But every time I remember the first time we saw it and we just revisited it, it's terrifying because every time it's like you don't want him to pull the blanket down because you know she's going to be closer.
But you also want him to.
But you also want him to. Yeah, but it's just so scary.
But isn't that the thing? Isn't that like everyone? I think we have that childlike reaction of like just throwing the blankets over. And I remember there was an argument I was reading on like a Reddit or Twitter. Someone was talking about the movie and they were saying like so stupid. Why wouldn't you just run out? And like obviously everyone has a different reaction and it's not. But I remember when I wrote that I placed her right next to the door. Yeah. So that it's like you can run out, but if you run out, you would have to go right by her to do that. Would you do that? It's and like
I think you freeze
when you are paralyzed. That's why they call it paralyzed with fear. When you are terrified, you can't move. So tell that Twitter user that. And by the way, random fact that I thought I heard correctly in director's commentary, wasn't the demon girl Angie's daughter?
Yes.
Oh wow!
By the way, who is this Angie? Because I love her. Like, was she up for?
Girl. She's awesome. She's in college now, and she was 11 years old when we shot it. And I go back to the Abaddon a lot during Halloween. I always make a visit there during Halloween, and I saw her just this past Halloween. She's great. She's all grown up, looks completely different. But she was awesome. She was so good in that. She was so excited because she got to tell her friends that she got to skip school to be in a horror movie. So she was in school and her mother let her, take off the day because we were shooting that during a weekday. And she was great. Got the contacts, sat in the makeup chair for like an hour or 2 hours, 3 hours, how long it was, and did that. But another fun fact about that scene is there was always going to be different looks. When Paul brings the camera under the blanket and when he peeks out and he was going to see her, instead her head was going to be turned more like now instead of looking away from Paul, she's looking directly at Paul. The last look before the final one, before the camera goes crazy though, was another happy accident where when he peeks out and he sees her and she starts to get up.
Oh yeah,
And then he brings the camera back down again. And then I love that, but that was an accident because when we're shooting that, it was Paul was under the blanket and I was just giving him random directions, yelling out like, now peek it out. Okay, I put it back down, move around, find another, peek it back out again. And then at one point I go, hey, Bailey, you just get up for a second. And as she did that, Paul, he lifted it up and it just caught her answering, when I just said to her, hey, Bailey, will you stand up? And she stood up at the right perfect time when he picked the blanket up. And to me, I thought, I was like, whoa, that I didn't even mean for that to be in the film. But that was so terrifying because I thought it was a better way of like, when he goes back under after he sees her stand up, he doesn't know where she's going, what she's doing. So it's like he knows that she's not there sitting against the wall anymore. She's got up. Who knows what she's doing? So that I love that last look, and that was just an accident of just me saying, Bailey, can you stand up? And it happened at the same time.
So a scene like this is obviously very technical and like there's no room for like improv. I mean, like, right? I mean, like the other scenes.
Well, when it comes to all of these scenes, especially the scares, is you shoot it the way it's scripted. I don't think this is even just with found footage. It's with traditional narrative too. You can improv a lot on a scare. As long as you get what you need, you can try things different ways. And we do that all the time. And I think a lot of, especially horror productions, do this a lot. If they get the scare the way they want it, and if something's looking good, they'll experiment and try different ways. Like, oh, this ghost was supposed to pop out of this corner. We got that. But let's try and pop it out of that corner or being this way or doing that. And so there is a lot of ways you can improv and change scares on set, and not just for found footage. You could do that in any kind of film. Was there any particular scene that sticks out in your mind that's like 100% improv?
Or just any lines? Because I know you talked about how the cast was able to improv a lot. Any just memorable parts that made it in the film that were actually improv?
Okay, so if there's a part of the film that is complete improv, and so every scene has a little bit of improv. So because I never told the actors they had to go line for line. I was said, you know the lines. If you just get the essence of your line or the essence of the scene out and what you're supposed to say, I'm fine with that. So a lot of times they would say the line for line. Sometimes they would say 50-50. But there was one day where we just let the actors go and just gave them a camera and say, you guys have the full reign of the house, filming yourselves. We're not going to be around. We went to next door, this big building next door where we were shooting some green screen stuff with Melissa that we never actually put into the film. But it was when she was supposed to get dragged down into the ground, which is in the director's cut. Mm-hmm. Melissa in the basement getting pulled underground. But we were shooting that effects scene with Melissa in another building next to the Abaddon. And while we were doing that, we told the actors, I'm like, you guys have all afternoon, just shoot all this improv as much as you want, shoot anything you want. And they had like 5 hours to, screw around with the camera, and the footage is awesome. It's hilarious. There's so many funny moments in it. I put some stuff in the extras on the DVD, but I did cut like a 2-minute version of everything they shot together to bridge the first act and the second act. And it's when it starts right after they're in the kitchen and they're talking to they meet Joey for the first time and they're in the kitchen. And that from then on, it's all improv. The whole kitchen scene is complete improv, and everything up to when Paul is singing, "I'm writing a letter to Daddy." And that ends the improv, and that starts the next scare that is written in the script when he walks up and sees the clown standing at the top of the basement stairs.
Yeah.
But for the 2 minutes before then, it's just them kind of screwing around, like setting things up, putting in a camera in the hallway, talking about they're hiring Joey, and Joey comes in and does his eyeball trick.
Yeah.
And then Paul comes in and says, and then Tony comes in and says like, Joey's eyeball fell out. And that was just like that was like probably like a minute of what was probably 5 hours of footage they shot.
Wow.
Edited in just to like a little bit of like not scripted, all just them hanging out with the camera for all day. And I got that little, I thought it was really cool. It just showed it. They did so well. They're such good actors, such good improv actors. And they did such a good job when they were just improving on their own.
But no one had to spend the night in that place, did they?
No. Nobody would.
No.
It's a maze, guys. It's so hard to find your way around. If you're there for the first time, it's just you won't know where to go to get out, and you can get lost so easily. And there's so much times that people like crew and actors are on the security cameras, like looking up at the cameras and saying, "Will someone tell me how to get out of here?"
Oh, I don't like that.
I wanted to bring up the music in the film because it's so simple yet so creepy and just effective, and not just the little piano theme, but even just the music that's playing when you pop in the DVD. I just wondered, did any specific horror scores inspire the music in this film, or how much were you involved in that? I know you had someone working on the music, right?
Yeah, so there was score, and it's kind of like that piano jingle, not the piano jingle that Paul plays, but the one that's it's on the end of the movie, the beginning of the movie. It kind of goes over the documentary side of the movie. Yeah. Someone wrote that, and it was a composer that my wife knew in New York. And he and his wife had she plays violin, he plays piano. And I met with him one night at a bar in New York, and it just said, like, I'm filming this movie. I don't have much to pay you, but like if you can come up with like a cool riff that I can like use throughout the film. And I just told him, it's a documentary, and he was a horror fan too, so he kind of got it. And he gave me such a good music that I was able to like use and like just place at certain parts, and it fit the documentary so well of the film.
It's so good. Like, yeah. I don't know. It just really does set the scene like right away at the beginning. It's just so creepy and gripping. But I will say I saw one random comment on IMDb trivia that says the piano theme sounds exactly like the Meow Mix jingle, but slowed down. Have you ever read that? And is that correct?
I didn't hear that. No, it's not correct. I'm trying.
The internet's crazy.
Isn't it Meow Mix? Isn't it Meow Mix?
It goes meow, 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 meow. And I'm just like, I read that, and that's like an official trivia for the movie. And I was like, that can't be right.
No, it's not. No, it's definitely not right. It's a different progression because ours is dun 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 dun. Goes up, and then
get your lawyers ready because Meow Mix is ready to sue.
Yeah, that's a hilarious comment. It might be. I might have just paid our composer to do that. I don't know. But no, you did a great job. But
yeah, I don't think it sounds like that. I just thought that was hilarious that was an actual comment on IMDb because it's definitely not correct. But we also have a few questions about the big opening night tragedy scene with all the extras.
Yes, I was going to say.
Oh, wait, before you said that, the Sarah death scene, that was completely different in the script than when we shot it, because we filmed it the way it was scripted, and it came out awful. And it looked like shit. It looked bad. It just looked terrible. And the actors were all there all night long trying to figure out how we're going to kill Sarah at the end. Paul kills Sarah. And I was so, like like Sarah and Paul come together at the end after all the chaos happened. She's like, Paul, what's wrong? Like, we got to get out of here. And Paul in the script stabs her. And so we see this on camera. We shot it, and he stabs her, and this fake blood comes out. It looked awful, and she falls down, and she was supposed to have her blood caplet in her mouth. You're supposed to, and then blood, she bites it, so blood comes out of her mouth. I don't know where we got this blood caplet from, because it looked like neon green coming out of her mouth and not like blood. It might have been. It looked, so everything about the scene looked awful, and we were trying to film this all night. And everybody was like, down, because we were riding such momentum. Everything was looking good. Everyone was like happy the way things were going. Then we just hit this roadblock with the scene. It just looked awful. Everyone was getting frustrated because it was a long night. And I finally just said, like, hey guys, listen, like, we'll just call it a night. We'll figure it out. We'll try to get ahead of schedule so we can come back to shoot this a different way. And it was actually Paul and Tony Gore and Jared Hacker come to me, and maybe Danny too, who plays Alex. But they were all talking about the scene for a while. They came to me and they said, we have an idea for Sarah. And I said, well, what is it? And they go, why doesn't Paul just like kill her with his camera? And just, just take the camera, just whack it, smash it over her face. And I said, that sounds very easy enough to film. Let's do it.
So you just smashed her with the camera.
Yeah. And it was just like, but it took out all like the hard work of like trying to figure out how to get the squibs right with the blood. And it's just, if it doesn't look perfect, if your squibs aren't done by professionals, then it's going to look cheesy. And it was looking cheesy. And this way it just looked more believable, and just like, I don't know if you can actually kill someone by smashing a camera over their face, but it just looked better.
With enough force, I think.
So that was one thing we completely had to improv and change from the script.
I will say, and you probably agree with this because I know you have like the less is more attitude toward horror, but sometimes, again, cliche lines, but what you don't see is scarier than what you do see. And with that scene, I remember, he's doing something to her with force and, some sort of blunt force, but you don't see like the actual hit, I guess, happens. Right. But then you see kind of the aftermath, and that is sometimes more terrifying.
And seeing the aftermath was much easier. But also when Paul slits his throat, the actual blood, the makeup on the slit throat thing was so well done. It was beautiful paint job by Lex and Rosser, our makeup artist on the film, and we never got a good angle on it. When Paul slides down, his shirt always bunches up around his throat, so we never really got a good shot of that. And I felt bad though, just because she put so much effort in it. It looked awesome. Blood did pour out, and every time he slides down, you just can't see it though. But
it looks good though. I mean, like, I know what you're saying, but it looks good and it looks real. And you have that connection because, at the beginning you mentioned that the first person they found was someone who slit their own throat. So it was
as someone who's had their throat slit.
Yes, exactly. I know exactly.
Right. Yeah. And that was the whole thing. That was the callback from earlier in the film when the detective said, or the journalist says the first person they came upon had slit their own throat. So yeah, hopefully that helps bridge that.
So, there are two things I wanted to follow up on that big, it's the opening scene, but it's also opening night. The first is, and you don't have to go into detail about this if you don't want to, but one thing that you mentioned in the director's commentary is that you wanted to have kind of a YouTube clip of someone capturing what happened because of you were inspired by a real life tragedy that was captured on YouTube. But you never say what that tragedy was. It
was like, I don't like, it is such a tragedy that I don't like even bringing it up because it's like such a downer, but it was a nightclub fire. It's called the Station Nightclub up in Rhode Island. And a band was playing, the pyrotechnics caught fire. Someone was there recording for the news paper, the local news, just had their camera playing the whole time. He catches from the moment when the pyrotechnics start catching fire to the time he runs out. But what I noticed about that and what happened in that tragedy is when the pyrotechnics caught fire, a lot of people didn't even know there was something wrong. They thought it was all part of the show. And that was kind of fit into the angle I was looking for, that people didn't know there was something wrong. And even when you're at a show like this, how would you know if someone's saying help me. Like, we have to get out of here. You think, that's part of the show.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, like going into any haunted house to this day, I feel what you're talking about could happen.
Yeah, it's true. It's, I mean, like, you never know, like, what's real, what are they just doing with acting? And speaking of that goes to the second thing I was going to ask you about, which was, the scene with Melissa in the basement where she is saying, help me, this is not part of the show. But I know in the director's commentary, you talked about that, your full original idea for that scene had to be cut due to budget constraints. Can you tell us what that full original idea was?
I wanted the basement just to have more going on, like Melissa actually, like, hands coming out of the ground and ripping Melissa down into the ground, things coming out of the wall, people literally being grabbed by like demonic things coming from the walls and coming from the ground. And it's in the 911 call. When the girl on the 911 call says like they're coming through the walls or they're taking them through the wall, I forget what the actual line is. But something about being pulled into walls, and I wanted to actually, see that visually and hope that I was going to get some of that more of the carnage in the basement on there. But I realized the carnage in the basement, it was going to take a lot to do. It was going to probably have to be CGI, and then I hate using CGI. I have done it subsequently in 2 and 3. I didn't want to, and I still don't even like that I did in 2 and 3. But unless you have an in with ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, it's not going to look good. So I try to avoid that. So then I just pared down the scene to just most of what is mostly off camera stuff. Like, we just hear the screams and we know that something bad is happening off camera without seeing it.
So now that the film's all done and wrapped, you enter into like a film festival. What was it like for you to watch it on a big screen for the first time with an audience? Yeah,
because wasn't it the premiere that it was first shown at like 2 film festivals in, I think, like October 2015, right?
So two things happened. I showed it to an audience of about 100 people at Lincoln Center in New York.
Oh my gosh!
It was not like any prestigious like viewing. My wife works there and just got me a hookup. And so, no, but she got me like a nice big space there, her concert hall that they used and that they have screenings for. And I said, would your boss mind if we used it for like a private screening? And she got permission. We invited the actors, I invited the investors, and I said, everyone can bring some friends and stuff like that, and so we just made it a big screening, and it was packed. A lot of people came, and mostly people that didn't know me. So the greatest thing that ever happened to me happened in terms of screening of film happened at this screening. I sat in the back. A couple of my coworkers at the office I was working at the time came, and this one coworker, she invited a friend of hers, and I didn't know who this girl was. She didn't know who I was, and she came in late, like kind of like a few minutes into the film, and sits down right next to me. And first I'm thinking like, who sits next to people? Like, no, I'm kidding. But
you're like, seats taken.
Yeah.
Come on. Like, can't you just sit like a couple seats over? No, I'm kidding. But anyways, during some of the height of the scares, this girl started going like covering her face. And like, I could tell like she just wasn't moving. She was going like this like the whole time. And at first I thought like, wait, I must know this girl. She's probably just being nice to me. And then I realized like, I have no idea who this is. This is a genuine reaction to the film. And I was like, holy shit, this actually might be scary. Because at the time I had no idea. I'm just so desensitized from it. I've been going through every frame for months and months and months. And that was the first time I thought like, oh, wow, this might be scary. Other people might find this scary. Hopefully more people having a reaction just like her. And that was just like a big relief. I'm like, well, at least she's finding it scary.
And then how soon afterward did you realize how popular this film had become? Because I mean, and that leads us to when you decided to make a sequel, but like, when did you start really noticing that, wow, this is getting a lot of positive buzz?
Yeah.
It's still happening.
No, I think with all indie films, especially if you don't have a theatrical release, you have to grow an audience over time. So it didn't happen overnight. Yeah. I'm still amazed that the film, people are talking about it, and I'm always humbled and just like, wow, people are watching it. I love that people are finding it, and always new audiences are finding it. And I think it's great that people love it. For me, I just love that it's a vindication for me that these subtle scares work. And because these are the scares that I kind of like. And when I put them on the screen, I never thought I didn't know if people would go for this or not. Because I didn't know, because I don't like the boo screams. I don't like the jump scares. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't know if audiences like the subtle things in the background too. So more people that started watching it and tweeting about it, or just finding me on Twitter or Facebook and writing to me and saying, love the film. I was just like, wow, this is awesome. This is great. There's more of us out there. There's more people that love subtle scares. This is great. But it took a while before it found like a wider audience and more people started to know about it. Probably like 2016, 17. So maybe like after like a full year or two after it'd been out on like Amazon and iTunes, that like it started getting enough of an audience where I thought like, oh, maybe I should make some more of it. Or
well, yeah, I was going to say, like, when did you first decide to make Hell House 2? And was Angie, the Waldorf owner, immediately on board again to film?
Yeah, she's immediately on board. The biggest regret I have is that I decided to make the second one too soon than what I was ready for. So I think 2 is definitely, if you poll the fans, people like think 2 is the least of the 3. And there's a good reason for that, because I think it was a rushed film. And once I thought like it had like any kind of notoriety, was getting any kind of popular buzz, I kind of jumped on that and said, oh, and then I should just get into the sequel immediately, when I shouldn't have. I should have stepped back and taken more time to adequately plan out the sequel, not just with writing, but with getting the production crew in place and the funding, because 2 was actually less. We had less of a budget in 2 than we did for the original.
But you know, there are definitely some good scares in the second one, like with the hitchhiker, which was that played by the same girl, the demon, Angie's daughter, the hitchhiking.
No, different girl. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
And, you know, the clown walking by the doorway and poor dead Diane playing the piano, you know, there's some good scares in it. And I actually did want to ask you about one kind of slightly different approach that you took in part 2, which was, you know, in the first one with the clown, you only see him after he's moved or after he's been stationed somewhere. You don't actually see him moving on camera. And then in the sequel, you took a different approach where you actually see him on film moving or walking. What made you take that different approach with the clown?
Well, he moves, but it's still subtle. So I just thought, if we're going to use the clown again, it just should be different than just being off-camera head movement, because we've been there, done that. What else can the clown do to terrify us? I thought that scene when they were trying to escape, but the clown is there by the door,
blocking the door.
Yeah. So I just thought that just poses that question. If you were, for the audience, like, would you have run by him, or like, does that block your edge? Right. So it's like, there's open freedom right there. There's how we get out, but it's standing right there. So I love the idea of it, like, as they subtly get inch closer to it, that if it moves on camera, it's just like that subtle, like, just looks to them a little bit. I thought that was just like a good gradual increase in the way we're using the clown, but not overdoing it. I would never want him to have, like, you know, been on film, like murdering people or something like that.
You mean done a little jig?
Yeah. And then in the end, we used him more in the flickering of light. He gets closer and closer to Jessica in that hallway there. And it was never, I had just played with that. That was one of the things where it's like improv, like let's do a lot of different things with this clown in this hallway with the flickering light, and I'll decide in post, and then playing with it. How close is he going to get? How much movement are we going to see out of him? Are we just going to see him out there, or is he going to come close to us? And just in playing with it, I liked the version where you see him getting closer in every flick of the light. But you know, and you could say that may have overdone the clown, maybe. But I just thought in 2 we had to bring his actions up a little bit, but not too much. I thought that was the middle ground.
The thing is, what I will say is that the clown is so terrifying that when I remember when the sequel came out and we were so excited, and I was really happy that you went back to using the clown, because I'm one of those people in horror that if something works, like, I want to see more of it. You know, right. Like, I'm not one that's like, oh, they already did this, because that clown was so terrifying. So I could see
the clown in every film.
Yeah, like, and it was, that's the thing. So it was great. And then moving into the third one, it felt almost like sort of like a return to form, in that there was now another group that was putting on a show in the hotel versus just investigating, but now it was immersive theater. And I was just wondering, were you purposely setting out in the third film to kind of return to that formula of the first one, where it's a group putting on a show like that?
Yeah. So I knew that once I started writing the second one, I knew that was going to be the third one. So when I started setting that up, when I was writing 2, that the grand finale of Hell House was going to be a big performance within the Abaddon, kind of similar to what Hell House did. And then that allows us to like have characters, protagonists that kind of mirror each other, and you can see like the difference between Alex and the difference between Russell Wynn and what they did, and you think that they're parallel to each other. They're, you know, Russell's making the same mistakes that Alex did, and you're following this trajectory the whole time, where the difference is that Russell was purposely doing this the whole time, instead of Alex unknowingly was leading his group into doom. He didn't know that, but Russell knew exactly what he was doing the whole time. So what you see is the two parallel protagonists in 1 and 3. One who gets everyone killed, not knowing what he's doing, but still being driven by the same forces that Wynn's driven by. But two of them having different things in the back of their head of why they're doing what they're doing.
I love the ending. It gets really violent and there's blood on the, I was so hoping there'd be blood on all over those sheets, like the whiteness and everything. And
yeah, we got more on the sheets. There's that one scene where the camera's on the ground and the mannequin falls over.
Yes.
And there's blood everywhere. And
I love that.
Well, what made you decide to up the violence in this one? Because it definitely has more violence than the other two. Is it because that was your kind of grand finale moment?
Yeah, exactly. I think in the grand finale of Hell House, I'm not a big blood guy. I kind of wanted to just reach out. No, and that's the thing. There are people love horror that do love the blood. And I was kind of like reaching out to them a little bit and that, saying like, I'm going to try to make this as violent as I can without going overboard. We don't have the budget to go overboard. So I'm just like, within our budget, how bloody can I make this? And so that's where it came from. And so we exhausted all of our blood. I said, Angie, we got to make a lot of blood on this one, because that whole heaven room that we made, I want it completely covered in blood by the end. And so we exhausted all of our blood supply by the end. I think I even cut my own wrist just to get a little bit more.
No, I will say, the heaven room I was just going to mention is my favorite, because what I love about the third one in that the difference of the set design, that you got to explore different rooms, and it was different. And, obviously I knew the reference to Sleep No More, which I actually saw in New York. No More, I've seen
that's awesome. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's us doing Sleep No More on a budget that is their lunch budget.
So, no, exactly right. But what that room, because like the contrast of the bright white everywhere with like the black cloaked figures running through, it was just golden.
I was so hoping it would go in that direction, and it did.
Yeah.
And that's Carlos was our director of photography for the third one. He's amazing. He's such I felt bad. He's such a high-end cinematographer that I was like, I felt bad asking him to do a found footage film. But he lit those rooms so well. The bar was lit very well, because I get my reference for the bar, the lighting, the way it should look on the characters when they're talking, was the bar in The Shining in the hotel. Yes. And then for Heaven, the way he made the whites glow, like the way he lit the heaven room, he made heaven glow the way it should. And so the whites popped, and that was allowing the good contrast when the dark cloaks are coming through it and everything. So that's a tribute to good set design by Angie, and also good cinematography by Carlos.
No, that's great. I do want to we have a quick section that we want to do, if you could spend a few more minutes with us, if you don't mind. This is something we like to do for fun. It's kind of like a rapid fire questions, where we're just going to ask you some rapid fire question. You simply have to answer Hell House 1, Hell House 2, or Hell House 3. No explanation needed. It's just, we're just going to kind of get your personal thoughts on pinning things against each other. You ready for this?
Okay, this is going to be good. All right.
Okay.
Matt, you start.
I will start.
Okay.
Which took the longest to film?
3.
Which did you enjoy filming the most?
1.
Which do you personally find to be the scariest?
1.
Which had the largest budget?
3.
Oh. Which had the most mishaps while filming?
1.
Oh.
If you could go back and do one of them differently, which one would it be?
2.
Which had the most male nudity? Trick question. There was none. Although we often talk about Tony.
Behind the scenes of 1, 2, and 3 had the most male nudity.
Really?
Oh.
When is that cut going to be released?
And then finally, across all 3 films, which is your favorite scene of all to film?
Yeah, not a movie. This one, just your favorite scene across all 3 movies. What specific scene is your absolute favorite?
Shit, that's a good one. I would have to say, just because the way it came out, I think the chaos scene in Hell House 1 with the tour goers because I just didn't. When I wrote it the way we saw it, and I never thought we would be able to get all of what we got out of it. I never thought we would get all the ambulances and the body bags and the fire trucks and get 100 extras to come out that day. I thought like we're going to have to cheat the camera do some tricks to make it look more than it was. And we didn't have to do that because we got all that. We got the fire trucks, we got the extras. And that was one scene that just surpassed what my expectations going in were going to be. So I'd have to say that.
No, that's cool.
Absolutely.
And it really makes it feel real. Moving past these, I heard that you and producer Joe Bandelli, who we were lucky enough to interview earlier, and we love Joe.
He plays the clown, and Joe's in all three Hell Houses and also plays the clown as well. Okay.
You know what I love is that also he's like I feel like he's like the cameraman in each of them, and he always dies, but he's always back as the cameraman, like as a different cameraman.
That's the thing. Like we tried to make sure that like we can. Nobody knows that, so it worked. That like he's the cameraman in 1, 2, and 3.
We just gave it away.
I mean, you only see like flashes of him, but it's hilarious. Yes, he told.
But the one where he's on camera the most and has the most biggest part is obviously 3. He's a very minor part in 1 and 2 where he only says a few lines off camera. But 3 is where his time to shine is. He's a good actor. I mean, as well. But obviously he's better he's very good at writing and directing himself. But he's. For us, for Hell House, he's an amazing producer and collaborator. So
no, we love him. He's become a horror friend of ours, and everyone should watch Unknown Dimension, which was his documentary on the Paranormal Activity series, which is so funny because we were just talking about found footage and Paranormal Activity, so you guys are all connected.
He was going to direct a documentary on found footage movie, and I just thought it would be hilarious if he disappeared and we only had his footage.
He's alive.
That's so meta. No, but what I know that you had mentioned that you and Joe were working on a 6-episode Hell House LLC series. It would be more of like kind of like a prequel looking into Andrew Tully, who was the original hotel owner. What can you tell us about the series and what's the status of it?
Well, unfortunately, the status is it's we've been hoping to make this for 2 years now, and now that it's been 2 years. Right at the start of the pandemic is when we really had the idea and we really started writing together on like outlines for episodes and really exploring the history of the Abaddon and the backstory of Tully and what we wanted to do is kind of like have a mirror 6 episodes that would mirror the story. It would go before Hell House, things that happened during Hell House parallel to it and after, and then we'd finish the 6th episode would be what happens after. And it's just what we realized is that if we're going to make that, it was going to take a lot of money. It's a huge investment, which we were never able to get after 2 years of trying to do everything we can to get this off the ground. Just hasn't happened. So we have all, I have tons of artwork made for concept art made for it. And we have this every episode written out, not fully scripted, just like outlines and stuff. We've been hoping to do it, just to start, get the green light and go make it. It just hasn't happened yet. So will it happen? I don't know. So my head right now is if we can't do this like kind of prequel, really expensive series, I'm going to probably make the next Hell House installment film.
Oh, I was just about to ask you, is there going to be a 4th Hell House?
Yes, probably. Yeah.
So you think that, so you're saying that because, we really, here's the thing, as fans of the series and I think most horror people, we'd love to see another installment, whether it's a series or a movie. But so are you saying, or if I'm hearing you correctly, you think there's a bigger possibility that there would be a 4th installment and then that you would do this series?
Yes, exactly. I think my plan, and I've already started doing a lot of outlining of stories, is to of the story. I haven't actually written the script yet, but I've been for this rainy day scenario that we can't make the series. I've been already doing outline for what the 4th movie would be.
2 gay podcasters?
Yeah, I was gonna say if you need actors, extras, any help whatsoever. I know 2 gay horror loving podcasters who would.
Listen, I know Joe vouches for you guys, so you don't even have to convince me. He says you guys are the best. So
we will be down there. We will film
nudity.
Tim will do nudity.
So there
I have to work out.
So that answers the question right there. The 4th Hell House film has the most male nudity.
Yes,
it's true. It's here. Okay, here's your scenario. scenario. It's a gay porn that's being filmed at the Abaddon Hotel.
Keep going. Love it. Keep going.
love it. The clown
run out of money.
The clown is involved. And okay, no.
I was like, I'll keep going.
This would be great. We personally would love for you to make a fourth Hell House movie. We also heard that you recently shot another, and I know you mentioned at the beginning, but I wanted to give you a chance to talk a little more about it. Another horror film called 825 Forest Road. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So what can you tell us about that, and what is the status of that movie?
825 Forest Road is a movie. I wrote it the first draft in 2018. And early in the pandemic, I finished it where I was like, this is a movie I'm ready to shoot. And then never really knew. I'm like, are we ever going to be making movies again? like early in 2020, I was like, I guess movie making is done. But I was very excited. So as you could put, I was very always checking my Twitter feed. Like, is the vaccine ready yet? Is it out yet? It's refreshing every day. But I was very happy, that we were, that things got productions all over the world got started again. But this film is it's a haunted house film. Good old fashioned haunted house film. At its core, at the bones, it's just a haunted house film. And I've always wanted to make just a standard haunted house film. And it just it came to me when my wife and I in 2016 moved. We moved from the city to back to Pennsylvania, and then we moved into a new house and kind of like semi-rural, kind of suburban area. And it was just like old town, old house, and asking people questions, meeting neighbors, and in my head, every time I met a neighbor or found something in the house, something would click in my head about it having a haunted paranormal thing going on. So then the story started to evolve from 2018, started evolving over time for 2 years, and then we finally got the budget to make it. We made it. And I'm just really excited about it because it's traditional narratives, not found footage, and it's right now in post-production. I had my first cut with the editor together that was very long, and the producers got a little mad because it was over 2 hours long, and they're like, we can't have a horror movie over 2 hours long. I was like, I get that, but I'm just saying this is my cut, and we have to chop it down. I'm just saying my cut is 2 hours and 4 minutes long. I'm just showing you that. But so right now, we're still in post-production working on the edits. Then we're going to sound and all the rest done. And I'm hoping it will find a home somewhere over the summer where it can be released in the fall.
Wow.
Oh, well, we'll be first in line.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, here's the thing, Stephen, to be honest, it's like, a lot of people are trying to make horror. And like you said, a lot of people will turn to horror because the budget can be so small, but not a lot of people do it successfally.
Yeah,
and
we've seen some stinkers.
And one thing I just want to reiterate is you really, really succeeded with these movies. I mean, the original is just something that I truly believe is going to be remembered for a long time. And like we said, that it's going to be up there with those heavyweights of found footage. You did a trilogy, which could be what do you call 4 movies? A quadrilogy?
You're asking the wrong person.
And I just think that that's incredibly commendable, and it's something that we're just excited to see, like, where the rest of your filmmaking career goes, because we think it's going to be great.
No, and when you say you've seen some stinkers, and I think, and the reason I just think things came together with Hell House, and it's things that are nothing to do with me. It's like when you get that good group of people together, crew and actors, and sometimes some films that are low budget, like they might not get that mix. They might have tremendous crew, but maybe the cast isn't there because you're not dealing with professional casting agencies, so and everything like that. So, and neither was I with Hell House. It was just like literally me and Joe meeting 100 people and auditioning them, and so sometimes it works out that the crew was amazing, the actors were amazing, and I think that's why people like Hell House so much is because of everyone else around me, separate from me, executed perfectly, and the cast, the actors did their job, better than I could have. Any casting talent agency could give me, any A-list talent. These guys did so good, and what they do, improv, both just improving stuff themselves, they're amazing, and I loved working with them. And
I agree across the board, 1, 2, and 3.
We stay in touch, all of us, so it's good.
That's really great. And also, it just sounds like the passion behind the project was completely there. Like you're saying, like developing that relationship with Angie, the owner of the hotel, and having like people involved that really wanted to do everything.
That's the thing. Like if every horror movie, if every independent horror film found an Angie, they'd be much better off.
It's such a good mix of people, and 1, 2, and 3. I get them all confused because I
know I love the cast, but every cast is different and unique, and I have different relationships with all of them. But I've always wanted to, I've been planning on doing this, getting a Hell House kind of reunion of all the cast of all the different crews and cast members, all 3 movies, and like going to the Abaddon one fall and like hanging out and like having
and then kill them all.
Yeah, and then kill them all.
and then kill them all. Yeah, and then later someone will find the footage, but
look,
she'll bring it in.
Murder is so funny.
The whole circle being closed irony would be that I would be on like a Dateline for like murdering people, like a real Dateline.
And then the footage would be of you planning. You thought you could get away with it by doing these movies about it, and then you did it all to lead to this reunion where you got all these people back just so you could murder them and say, yeah, there it is. See,
well, fun fact: if you're ever at a Target, pay close attention to the men's clothing department, because
who doesn't?
But you always see Russell Gabriel, Russell Wynn. He's a model, and he's always, I see him in wherever my local Target I go there, I see him in big posters all over the place.
He is a good looking man. Are we talking underwear model or clothing model?
That's Target's for the family.
Yeah, Target's family, but no underwear.
You're right. No, he's a very good looking guy. We have one final question for you, Stephen. We ask this to every single person we interview, and you've already told us a ton of stuff, but this is something I want you to really think about, because what our question is what is one thing that you can tell us about your experience working on any of the Hell House LLC movies that you've never told in any other interview, podcast, or publication? It can be a small detail, it can be a huge thing, but something that you've never told in any interview or podcast before.
It's really haunted.
It's not haunted. There's no such thing as ghosts, by the way. But I love small town hotel living. I have fun being out on a shoot, living out of my suitcase in a hotel room for 2-3 weeks at a time, and it's fun. It's like being a kid again, like college or something like that.
Summer camp.
Yeah, it's just fun to shoot movies out on a location somewhere and being away from home for a little while. I miss home. I have 2 little kids. It kills me to be away from them though. But it's just like being at a camp or something, or being
like a field trip
again or something. And just like you're working, and you're making movies, and you're having fun, and just about that, I think that's a fun thing about production. I think a lot of people have that about production. I would never want to make a movie like in my backyard or in my town. I like traveling somewhere to go to a set and being there and like immersing in like this town that I'm not from, I don't live in, and just making a movie. I think it's great.
Well, I have to ask.
I don't know if it's a unique enough detail. It's really boring.
No, it's good. Well, this is a question I really need to know now. Have your kids seen the film, and at what age would you let them see it?
No, they're too young. My kids are 3 and 5.
Oh my God.
Nightmare.
You are so conservative. Just let them watch it. Just kidding. No, 3 and 5. Yeah, I would say, but
I'm so happy. They both sleep through the night. They don't wake up with nightmares yet. I don't want to be the cause of it. And like my wife would be like, then you're dealing with them if they're waking up in the middle of the night, because I'm the one that gave them nightmares. I would be the one getting up and having to put them back to bed every night.
Right.
Well, but who knows? By the time they're old enough to see it, maybe they'll be Hell House 4, maybe 5, and you can just force them to watch.
No, there would have to be Hell House 20 by the time they're allowed to see it. They're not.
They're gonna take over the family legacy.
Yeah. Well, Stephen, this has been such a pleasure, really, to chat with you. We've had so much fun.
I love it.
We really we were really looking forward to this. We after we had talked with Joe, I was just kind of like, do you think you could get Stephen to talk to us? And he's like, oh, sure. I talk to him like all the time. And so,
it's funny. He reached out to me, and I've been, I always think like, what more do people want to know about Hell House? But when he told me that, he said, these guys are really funny. You have a great time. And I have had a great time. So thank you for inviting me in. But also, it's just been a long, boring winter. I'm like, I just want to talk to someone. I'm excited to talk. I'm rather like, I've just been cooped up in the house. Like I live in Northeast Pennsylvania. There's like a foot of snow outside all the time. Like it's been like, we haven't been doing anything for like 2-3 months now. So I'm kind of like, yeah, I want to have a conversation with someone. I'm sure I'll do it.
Oh, good.
Well,
not to rub it in, but we're sweating here.
I know it is. I know, not to rub it in.
You guys, it's already hot out there, right? You guys are already in your house.
Ridiculous.
Very, very, very hot.
98 degrees.
But yeah, thank you so much. And again, we're so grateful, and we wish you the absolute best moving forward with Hell House, with 825 Forest Road. Did I just say the address round? 825 Forest Road. Yes. Mm-hmm. And with everything you do in your career. Thank you so much.
Yes, you're awesome.
Thank you guys. So much fun. Thank you.
Okay. Take care.
Have a good day.
Bye. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Happy Horror Time.
This podcast is hosted by Matt Emmer and myself, Tim Murdoch, and co-produced and edited by Jacob Randall.
We now release episodes every Monday, and in each episode, we either review horror movies that just came out or interview stars and insiders from iconic horror films. You can stream all our episodes directly from our website, that's happyhorrortime.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
And remember, our reviews do contain spoilers, so we always post the movies we're discussing a few days in advance on our social media pages, so listeners can check them out ahead of time.
And speaking of social media, make sure you follow our pages on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Happy Horror Time. We even started putting our interviews up on YouTube along with our horror short film, Come In. You've got to check it out. You can find us on YouTube by searching for Happy Horror Time.
If you'd like to support the podcast, please sign up to be a patron at patreon.com/happyhorrortime.
That's patreon.com/happyhorrortime. Patrons get access to our growing library of monthly bonus episodes and other fun benefits like ad-free episodes that are out a day in advance, our monthly newsletter, participation in polls, and autographed Happy Horror Time stickers.
Woo! And if you'd like to contact us, please send us an email at happyhorrortime@gmail.com. Tell us what you love, how sexy you think we are, whatever.
I'm Matt Emmer.
And I'm Tim Murdoch.
And we hope you have a happy horror time.